My son told me that my $20 dress from Kohl's was an embarrassment and that he didn't want me at his wedding. He called me a pathetic excuse for a mother and said his life would have been better if I just stayed a sad, broke widow after his father died. Little did he know that sad, broke widow owned the company that had just offered his fiance the promotion of a lifetime, a promotion that was about to be rescinded along with her career. If you're ready for this journey, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this a like so you don't miss the updates. And let me know in the comments what city you're watching from. It's always lovely to see where everyone is. All right, let's get into it. For 30 years, my whole world revolved around my son, Ben. After his father, my dear Robert, passed away from a heart attack far too young, it was just the two of us. I was 35, Ben was 10, and we were left with a grief so big it filled every room in our small house. We were also left with Robert's little dream, a small workshop that made specialized machine parts. It was called Vance Industrial Solutions. It wasn't much, but it was ours, and Robert had poured his heart and soul into it. Most folks in our town, including my own son, figured I'd sell it off. What did a widowed art history major know about running a machine shop? And for a while, I considered it. The offers were there. Not great, but enough to live on comfortably for a bit. But selling it felt like betraying Robert's memory. It was the last piece of him I had, this noisy, greasy place that smelled of metal and oil. So I decided to learn. I read his books, I took business courses at the community college at night, and I spent my days on the shop floor, learning from the men who had worked for my husband for years. Ben never saw that part. I made sure of it. I'd be home every day when he got off the school bus, cookies baked, milk on the table, ready to hear about his day. The grease under my fingernails was always scrubbed off, my work boots swapped for sneakers. I'd do the company books and make sales calls after he went to bed. I wanted his childhood to be as normal and happy as possible. I didn't want him to worry about money or see his mom exhausted and stressed. As far as he knew, Mom ran a small, struggling business that just about paid the bills. And for a long time, it was just that. But I'm a quick study, and I inherited my father's head for numbers. I started seeing opportunities where Robert, bless his heart, hadn't. He was a brilliant machinist, but not a growth-minded businessman. I started bidding on bigger contracts. I diversified. I took a huge risk and invested in new CNC machines when everyone else was cutting back during a downturn. And it paid off. Big. Over the next 2 decades, Vance Industrial Solutions, the little shop that could, grew into Vance Industries, a multi-state corporation with 3 subsidiaries. We became a key supplier for aerospace and automotive companies. But here's the thing. I never changed. I still lived in the same modest house Robert and I had bought. I still drove a Honda Accord, a new one every 8 years, but nothing fancy. I didn't see the point in flaunting it. My joy came from the challenge, from building something Robert would have been proud of, not from buying diamonds or fancy cars. I set up trust funds for Ben's education and his future, but I never told him the full extent of my wealth. I wanted him to be his own man, to have his own drive, not to be some lazy trust fund kid. And he was. I was so proud of him. He got a business degree, landed a good job at a consulting firm in the city, and was handsome and charming. Then, about 2 years ago, he brought home Amanda. Amanda Wellington was, on the surface, every mother's dream. Beautiful, polite, ambitious, she came from what people call old money. Her parents, the Wellingtons, lived in a monstrous colonial mansion in the fanciest part of the state. They had a last name that opened doors at country clubs and yacht clubs, places I had no interest in ever seeing. Amanda worked in marketing, and she was very, very good at it. She was a go-getter, a real shark. I respected her ambition, even if I found her a little unpolished. Everything about her seemed perfectly curated, from her crisp white blouses to her carefully practiced laugh.
Ben was completely smitten. He started to change. He traded his comfortable jeans for tailored slacks, his weekends spent hiking with me for weekends spent at the Wellington's Country Club. He started talking about optics and networking. He began to sound less like my Ben and more like Amanda's parents. The phone calls became less frequent. When he did visit, he'd wrinkle his nose at my ancient furniture and suggest I invest in a few key pieces. I just laughed it off. He was in love, building a new life. This was normal. The wedding invitation arrived on thick, cream-colored cardstock with embossed gold lettering. The wedding was to be held at the Wellington estate. It was going to be an affair to remember. The society pages were already buzzing about it. I was thrilled for him, truly. My only son was getting married. A few weeks before the wedding, I got a call from a name I vaguely recognized from company paperwork, one of my HR directors. He was calling to get my final signature on a major promotion. The company had recently acquired a smaller marketing firm in Chicago, and they were promoting one of its rising stars to run the new integrated digital strategy team. It came with a huge pay bump and a generous relocation package to our new Austin headquarters. The name on the file was Amanda Wellington. My heart just soared. What a wonderful, incredible coincidence. My son's fiance was a superstar at a company I secretly owned. I, of course, hadn't been involved in the hiring process. I'm the CEO of the parent company, far removed from middle management promotions. Her performance had earned this all on its own. I couldn't wait to surprise them. I pictured revealing it at the rehearsal dinner, a wonderful story to tell. I signed off on the promotion, feeling like the luckiest mother in the world. Then came the issue of the dress. Amanda took me shopping at a series of terrifyingly expensive boutiques. She'd hold up silk dresses that cost more than my first car and say, "Isn't this just divine, Eleanor?" I would just smile and say it wasn't quite me. I saw a simple navy blue lace dress at Kohl's on sale for $45. It was elegant, comfortable, and classic. It was me. I bought it along with a pair of sensible silver heels. I thought I looked nice. I felt nice. The day of the wedding arrived. I drove my 10-year-old Honda to the Wellington estate, a place so grand it looked like it had been airlifted from the English countryside. Valets in crisp uniforms looked at my car with thinly veiled pity before taking the keys. As I walked toward the perfectly manicured gardens where the ceremony was to take place, I could feel the stares. Women in fascinators and designer gowns, men in bespoke suits. They didn't see Eleanor Vance, CEO. They saw a woman in a Kohl's dress who was clearly out of her depth. I found Ben near the floral arch, looking impossibly handsome in his tuxedo. When he saw me, his smile faltered. It was a tiny flicker, but I saw it. Amanda glided to his side, a vision in white. She saw me, and her perfectly painted smile tightened. "Mom, what are you wearing?" Ben asked, his voice low and tight. "It's my dress, honey. Do you like it?" I asked, doing a little twirl. Amanda let out that laugh of hers, the one that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Eleanor, it's quaint." That was the moment things started to unravel. It was that single word. Quaint. Ben's face darkened. He pulled me aside behind a large marble statue of a weeping angel. His voice was no longer a whisper. "Are you kidding me? This is what you're wearing to my wedding? To this wedding?" He gestured wildly at the opulent surroundings. "Everyone here is important. The Wellington's friends, my bosses, and you show up looking like you've come from a PTA meeting." The hurt was a sharp, physical thing. "Ben, I like this dress. It's just a dress. People are here to celebrate you and Amanda, not to look at my clothes." And just when he thought he had me backed into a corner, he forgot who he was dealing with. Stick with me, because you'll want to see how this plays out. His face was turning red. You don't get it. You've never gotten it. It's about the message it sends. It sends the message that my family is cheap, that I come from nothing. You come from a wonderful, loving home, Benjamin, I said, my own voice starting to shake. I come from a sad little house with a mother who has no ambition, he spat out. You could have sold Dad's old shop. We could have had a real life. But you clung to it, content to be this pathetic, struggling widow. You're an embarrassment, Mom.
Every word was a punch to the gut. An embarrassment. Pathetic. The sacrifices, the sleepless nights, the risks I took, all of it was so he would never have to worry. And he saw it as a failure. He saw me as a failure. I have done everything for you, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Amanda had reappeared, her hand on Ben's arm. Her expression wasn't angry. It was one of deep, profound disappointment. That was somehow worse. Maybe it would be best if you just left, Eleanor, she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. This is clearly very overwhelming for you. We don't want a scene. That was it. The Wellingtons' money and influence had completely consumed my son. He was looking at me with their eyes, not his own. What? I stared at him, my heart breaking into a million pieces. She's right, Ben said, not even looking at me now, just staring at the pristine lawn. This was a mistake. I can't have you here looking like that. Please, just go. I'll call you next week and we can talk. He turned his back on me. He dismissed me from his wedding, his mother. I stood there for a moment, frozen. The classical music from the string quartet felt mocking. The scent of roses was suffocating. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Something inside me went very cold and very still. All the years of soft maternal love suddenly crystallized into something hard and sharp as a diamond. I walked away. I didn't look back. I got in my sensible Honda and drove away from the valet who probably thought he was doing me a favor by not scratching my car. On the long, quiet drive home, the grief and the shock burned away, leaving behind a cold, clear fury. He called me a pathetic, struggling widow with no ambition and embarrassment. Fine. He was about to find out just how ambitious his mother truly was. When I got home, I didn't change out of my $45 dress. I walked straight into my home office, the one place that reflected my real life. It was paneled in dark wood with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a large mahogany desk that had once belonged to the CEO of a company I'd acquired. I sat in my leather chair, opened my laptop, and pulled up Amanda Wellington's employee file. There it was. Promotion to Vice President Digital Strategy. Location, Austin, Texas. Status, awaiting final CEO approval. My signature was already on it from the week before. All it needed was the final digital countersignature to be executed by HR on Monday morning. I looked at her picture on the file, that perfect, curated smile. The woman who stood by and watched my son throw me out of his wedding. The woman who was about to move to a new city, to a new powerful job, and leave my embarrassing past behind. I right-clicked on the document. The options came up: approve, deny, edit. My finger hovered over the deny button. It would be so easy, just one click, and her dream promotion would vanish. Her career at Vance Industries would be over. They'd find a reason: budget cuts, corporate restructuring, anything. No one would ever know I was involved. It would be quiet, corporate justice. Ben and Amanda would never have a clue. But it didn't feel like enough. It was too quiet, too simple.
Ben's words echoed in my ears. Pathetic, no ambition, embarrassment. Fine. He was about to find out just how ambitious his mother truly was. I moved the mouse away from the deny button and started to type. A new plan was forming in my mind, a much better one, a plan that involved a lot more than just a rescinded job offer. It involved a front row seat to a spectacular implosion.
My new plan began not with anger, but with process. Anger is messy, but process is clean, irrefutable, and in the corporate world, it's everything. For years, I had cultivated an image inside my own company as a hands-off, big-picture CEO. They called me the ghost on the upper floors because I trusted my executives to run their departments and only materialized when it was absolutely necessary. This was the perfect cover. No one would ever suspect my sudden interest in the minutia of a single employee's file. I still had a login with top-tier administrative privileges, something I hadn't used in years. I bypassed our CTO and our head of HR. At 2 a.m, sitting in my quiet office in my $45 dress, I became my own IT department. I started with Amanda's expense reports. She was a marketer. She entertained clients. But the patterns, they were interesting. Most of her big client dinners in Chicago, her old post, were at one of 2 restaurants, both notoriously romantic spots. And there was always one guest, Mark Peterson, her direct supervisor, the senior vice president she was supposedly replacing. The receipts were always for 2 people. Strange for a client dinner. Next, I looked at travel records. There were several marketing conferences in the past year: San Diego, New York, Miami. For each trip, Amanda's flight and hotel were booked, as was Mark Peterson's. Standard enough. But then I cross-referenced the hotel folios, the detailed receipts of room charges. On each trip, there were 2 rooms booked, but only one ever had any room service or minibar charges. Mark's room. Amanda's room, always pristine, was just for show. A clever little bit of fraud, but small potatoes. The real prize, I knew, would be on the company's server. Communication logs, that's what I was after. Every email, every instant message sent on the company network is logged and archived. It's a standard policy for legal and compliance reasons. Pulling them up felt like opening a vault. I filtered by sender, Amanda Wellington, recipient, Mark Peterson. The subject lines were all business at first glance: Q3 strategy deck, Austin transition plan, budget projections. But when I opened them, oh my! Sprinkled between spreadsheets and marketing copy were little messages. Can't wait to debrief with you tonight. That hotel in San Diego was amazing. The view. And you. And then the crown jewel, an email from Amanda to Mark sent just 2 weeks ago, the day after her engagement party. "It's all going perfectly," she wrote. "Ben is completely wrapped around my finger. The Wellingtons think I'm a saint. Once this promotion to Austin is finalized and we're away from here, it'll be so much easier for us. A year in Austin to lock in the title and the experience, then we can make our move. You and me. Vegas office? International?" My blood ran cold. This wasn't just a fling. This was a long con. She wasn't just cheating on my son. She was using him. Using his name, his connections through the Wellingtons, and my company, as a stepping stone for her and her lover. My son, for all his newfound arrogance, was just a pawn in her game. She wasn't building a life with him. She was building a resume. I screenshotted everything. The expense reports, the hotel folios, the emails. I downloaded the chat logs. I compiled a file, a neat little digital folder that contained the complete and total implosion of Amanda Wellington's life. It was all there in black and white, and it was so much worse, so much more delicious than I ever could have imagined. They had handed me the ammunition, and now I just needed to build the cannon. Stick around, because the fireworks are about to start.
I didn't do anything for 3 days. I went to the office, held my meetings, approved budgets, and smiled at my employees. I let the wedding weekend pass. I let Ben and Amanda fly off to their honeymoon in Bali, a lavish 2-week affair paid for by the Wellingtons. They'd need the rest. A week later, my phone rang. It was Ben, calling from a poolside cabana. I could hear the tropical birds and clinking glasses in the background. "Hey, Mom," he said, his voice casual as if nothing had happened. "Just checking in. How are you?" "I'm fine, Ben," I said, my voice perfectly level. "How is Bali?" "Oh, it's incredible. Amanda's sleeping. We had a late night. Listen, about the wedding," he began. And for a fleeting second, I felt a flicker of hope that he was going to apologize. I was wrong. "I know things got a little tense. I just want to clear the air. We're going to be moving to Austin in a couple of months for Amanda's new job. It's a huge promotion, and it's going to be a different lifestyle. A better one. And I want you to be a part of that. So I'm going to send you some money." I was silent. Money. He thought he could solve this with money. "Not a lot, but enough so you can get a few nice things. Hire a stylist, maybe. So when you come visit us in Austin, you'll feel more comfortable. You'll fit in. We just want what's best for you, Mom."
That little flicker of hope inside me didn't just die. It was incinerated, replaced by a cold, hard certainty. He wasn't my boy anymore. He was a Wellington. He was Amanda's creation. He looked at me and saw a problem to be managed, a rough edge to be sanded down and polished so he would look better. "That's very thoughtful, Ben," I said. And I swear I could feel the temperature in the room drop. "Great, so we're good?" he asked, relieved. "Awesome. Amanda sends her love. Gotta go, the waiter's here with our mimosas. Love you." He hung up. He didn't even wait for me to say it back. That phone call burned away the last little bit of the old me, the me that made cookies and kissed scraped knees. He didn't want that mother anymore. Fine. He was about to meet the CEO, and she was not a woman to be trifled with. You will not believe what I did next. My plan needed a stage, and I knew the perfect one. The Wellingtons threw an annual garden party in late summer for their charity foundation. It was the social event of the season, a sprawling affair on their estate for hundreds of their closest friends and business associates, a party to see and be seen. And conveniently, it was scheduled for the week Ben and Amanda were due back from their honeymoon. It would be their first public appearance as a married couple. The Wellingtons had, of course, never invited me to anything, but I had my ways. Vance Industries was now a giant in its field, and while I kept my name out of the society pages, the company name carried immense weight. Through my executive assistant, I made a very substantial, anonymous donation to the Wellingtons Foundation, enough to put us in the top sponsorship tier. The donation came from a holding company I owned, one so obscure it couldn't be traced back to Vance Industries without a forensic accountant. 2 days later, a thick, cream-colored invitation arrived. Not for Eleanor Vance, the embarrassing mother-in-law. This one was addressed to Miss Eleanor Vance, esteemed philanthropist and community partner. Oh, the irony was just delicious. With the stage set, I just needed to get all the actors in place. Amanda was easy. Her entire life was about climbing this particular social ladder. Mark Peterson, her lover and boss in Chicago, was trickier. Why would he be at a party in another state? I needed to give him a reason. So I had my chief operating officer, one of the few people who knew my full story and was loyal to me, not the company, make a phone call. The call was to Mark. The COO explained that the board of directors was so impressed with the recent acquisition and transition plan that they wanted to discuss a new, massive expansion project. They were considering Mark to lead it. It was a complete fabrication, of course, a lie so big and juicy he couldn't possibly resist. The COO scheduled an urgent preliminary meeting.
The location? A 5-star hotel, just 10 minutes from the Wellington estate. The time? The morning after the party. Mark was told to fly in the day before to be well rested. And my COO just happened to mention, I believe the Wellingtons are having some sort of charity function that evening. My assistant has an extra ticket if you'd be at all interested. It's a great networking opportunity. Like a fish to a lure, he took the bait. He'd get to impress the COO, do some networking, and surprise his girlfriend, who he thought would be celebrating her promotion across town. He had no idea he was flying first class into his own career demolition. The final piece was the payload itself. How to deliver the information for maximum impact. Sending an anonymous email was too small, too easy to ignore. I needed something physical, something everyone would see, something that would carry the undeniable authority of the corporation they were trying to defraud. I had my corporate design team put together a formal presentation portfolio. The cover was emblazoned with the official Vance Industries logo. The title, in bold corporate font, read, Internal Audit Report, a codename I came up with that sounded ominous. Inside was not a report, but a story told in documents. It started with the promotion letter I had signed offering Amanda the vice president position in Austin. Then, page by page, it laid out the evidence, the romantic dinner receipts, the hotel bills showing the phantom room, the printed emails with their sweet nothings and their 5-year plan highlighted in yellow, and finally, the damning chat logs. I had 5 copies printed on the highest quality paper and bound in navy blue leather portfolios.
The night of the party, I didn't wear my Kohl's dress. I went to the most expensive boutique in the city, one of the ones Amanda had taken me to, and I bought the first thing the terrified sales associate showed me. It was a designer dress in a striking cobalt blue, a piece of clothing that cost more than my Honda's engine. I had my hair and makeup professionally done. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I wasn't Ben's mom. I was Eleanor Vance, CEO, and I was ready to go to war. I put the 5 leather-bound portfolios in a designer briefcase and drove, not my Honda, but a black town car I had hired, to the Wellington estate for the second time in a month. This time, I knew I wouldn't be asked to leave. The Wellington estate was even more obscene the second time around. Fairy lights were strung through ancient oak trees, a jazz trio played on a pristine white gazebo, and waiters in tuxedos moved through the crowd with trays of champagne and canapés that probably cost more than my weekly grocery bill. It was a perfect picture of effortless wealth, and I knew just how much effort it actually took to maintain such a facade. I stepped out of the town car, and the effect was immediate. The head valet, the same man who had smirked at my Honda, practically tripped over himself to open my door. I handed him the keys, which were just a fob for the hired car, but he didn't need to know that, and didn't even make eye contact. As I walked up the stone path, conversations lulled. Heads turned. They weren't seeing Ben's mousy mother anymore. They were seeing a woman in a $5,000 dress who carried herself like she owned the place. In a way, I did. I owned the future of at least 2 people here. I saw them before they saw me. Ben and Amanda were holding court near the fountain, looking tan and happy from their honeymoon. Amanda was telling some story, her hands fluttering, making the diamonds on her new wedding ring sparkle under the lights. Ben was laughing, beaming at her, a proud new husband. He looked so happy. And it was all built on a lie. A cold, hard knot tightened in my stomach, but I pushed it down. This wasn't about him anymore. It was about justice. "There she is!" a booming voice exclaimed. A portly man with a pink face and a bow tie was barreling towards me. This was Thurston Wellington III, Amanda's father. "Our mystery guest of honor. I'm Thurston Wellington. We are so grateful for your foundation's incredible generosity." He took my hand and gave it a clammy shake. His wife, a reed-thin woman named Bitsy, whose face was pulled so tight she looked permanently surprised, floated up behind him. "It was my pleasure," I said, my voice smooth as silk. "I always believe in supporting family-oriented causes." I let that hang in the air for a moment. They just beamed, not catching the irony at all. "We must introduce you to everyone," Bitsy chirped. And they did. For 20 minutes, I was paraded around their inner circle. Bankers, judges, old money heirs. I shook hands, smiled, and murmured pleasantries. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Ben and Amanda watching, their smiles looking a little more fixed now. They were confused. How did their drab, embarrassing mother know these people? How did she get in here? Finally, they could stand it no longer and came over. Ben had a bewildered look on his face, but he quickly plastered on a proud son's smile for the Wellingtons. "Mom, what a surprise! You look... wow," he said, the words catching in his throat. He looked at Thurston. "You know my mother?" Thurston laughed his big, booming laugh. "Know her, my boy. Your mother is the magnificent benefactor we were telling you about. Single-handedly funded our new children's wing. We didn't realize there was a family connection. What a small world." Ben's jaw practically hit the flagstones. Amanda went pale under her expensive tan. I could see the wheels turning in their heads, the frantic calculations, the money. They thought this was about money. They thought I had been secretly rich all along and had hidden it from him. The hurt that flashed in Ben's eyes was real, but it was selfish hurt. He wasn't hurt that I had lied. He was hurt that he hadn't had access to the money sooner. "Eleanor, you never told us," Amanda said. Her perfect poise was cracking. "Why all the secrecy?"
I gave her a serene smile. "Oh, I'm a very private person, dear, and I find that money complicates relationships, don't you?" They thought I had come to beg my way back into their lives. They had no idea I was there to burn their lives to the ground, and I had the matches right here in my briefcase. Before they could respond, I turned back to Thurston. "There is, however, a small matter I need to discuss regarding the final allocation of the funds, a question of due diligence. It really requires your whole family's input, and discretion is paramount." Thurston puffed out his chest. Discretion, due diligence. These were words he understood. Of course, anything. My study is at your disposal." "Wonderful," I said. Then I delivered the masterstroke. I scanned the crowd, my eyes landing on a man in a well-cut but slightly too shiny suit, looking uncomfortable in trying to nurse a club soda. Mark Peterson. He'd been watching us, a perplexed look on his face. "There is one other person whose input is vital," I continued, loud enough for those around us to hear. "A rising star in the corporate world whose work has recently come to my foundation's attention, a Mr. Mark Peterson from Chicago." I gestured towards him. Mark looked up, shocked that his name was being called out by this mysterious woman surrounded by the party's hosts. Thurston, eager to please his new cash cow, dispatched a waiter to fetch Mr. Peterson. Mark walked over, looking completely bewildered, but also pleased. Being singled out at a party like this was a huge ego boost. "Mr. Peterson," I said, offering a hand. "Eleanor Vance, thank you for joining us." He shook my hand, his grip a little too firm. "A pleasure. I'm not sure." "I understand," I cut in smoothly. "It concerns a recent corporate acquisition and a major personnel change your team handled. It has philanthropic implications. My board insists on absolute certainty before we proceed." I looked at Thurston. "Shall we?" He led the way, puffing and preening. Bitsy floated along. I walked beside them. Behind us, my son, his wife, and her lover trailed like confused children being led to the principal's office. We walked through the perfect house into a magnificent library, paneled in dark wood, filled with leather-bound books that I was sure no one had ever read. Thurston closed the heavy doors behind us, shutting out the sound of the party. The air grew thick and quiet. We all stood there for a moment. Ben looked angry.
Amanda looked like she was going to be sick. Mark was trying to project an air of business-like confidence, but his eyes kept darting to Amanda. The Wellingtons just looked expectant, ready to talk about money. I placed my designer briefcase on the massive mahogany desk. It looked just like the one in my home office. I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I was in my element now. This was a boardroom, and this was a hostile takeover. "Thank you all for joining me," I began, my voice calm and authoritative, the voice of a CEO, not a mother. Ben flinched when he heard it. He'd never heard it before. Amanda found her voice, a high, reedy sound. "Eleanor, I don't understand what this is all about. What does my work have to do with your foundation?" "That, Amanda, is an excellent question," I said, my fingers resting on the brass latches of the briefcase. Ben stepped forward. "Mom, if this is about the wedding, if you're trying to embarrass me by throwing money around—" I held up a hand and he stopped talking. For the first time in years, he obeyed me without question. My new persona had that much power. I looked past my son, past his new wife, and settled my gaze on the man who thought he was here for a promotion. I let the silence stretch out, making everyone uncomfortable. Amanda couldn't look at Mark. Mark couldn't look at Amanda. They were trapped. He was about to get exactly what he deserved, and I had a front row seat. "Don't go anywhere." I flicked open the latches. The clicks sounded like gunshots in the silent room. I lifted the lid, revealing 5 identical leather-bound portfolios. I took one out and handed it to Thurston Wellington. I gave one to Bitsy. I placed one on the desk in front of a pale, trembling Amanda. I slid another across the polished wood to a confused-looking Mark Peterson, and I held the last one out to my son. "Ben," I said, my voice now devoid of any warmth, "your wife is an incredibly ambitious woman. I thought you, of all people, should see the full scope of her 5-year plan." He took the portfolio from my hand, his eyes wide with confusion and a dawning sense of dread. "What is this? Project Nightingale?" he read aloud.
"Open it," I commanded. "All of you. Page 1.
Thurston Wellington opened his portfolio with the brisk, no-nonsense air of a man used to reviewing business proposals. Bitsy handled hers as if it might contain a snake. Mark Peterson's brow was furrowed in professional curiosity. Amanda just stared at the cover of hers, her face a mask of stone. But it was Ben's face I watched. His hands, which had been steady a moment before, were now trembling slightly. "Page 1, I repeated, my voice as cold and clear as ice water. "As you can see, this is a copy of the promotion offer extended to Amanda, Vice President, Digital Strategy, a significant step up, a move to our new headquarters in Austin." "We're very proud," Bitsy murmured, trying to fill the awkward silence. "Turn the page," I instructed. Page 2 is a collection of expense reports. You'll notice, Mark, that your client dinners with Amanda were always for 2 people, at rather intimate establishments. And Thurston, as a businessman, you'll find the hotel folios on pages 3 and 4 quite illuminating. 2 rooms booked for every business trip, but expenses, room service, movies, charged to only 1. A rather inefficient use of company resources, wouldn't you say? Mark went white. He shot a panicked look at Amanda, who was now staring at me with pure, undiluted hatred. Ben was still staring at the pages, a deep, confused frown on his face. He wasn't connecting the dots. He still trusted her. This is highly irregular," Thurston sputtered, flipping back and forth between the pages. "This is a serious accusation, Eleanor." "It gets more serious," I said. "Please turn to page 5. These are internal company emails. You might want to read them carefully." And then silence. A profound, heavy silence, broken only by the rustle of turning paper. I watched Ben's face. I saw the moment his brain finally processed the words his eyes were seeing. The "can't wait to debrief with you tonight." The "that hotel in San Diego was amazing." And you.
I saw his knuckles go white as he gripped the leather portfolio. His breathing became shallow, audible in the dead quiet room. He looked up from the pages, his eyes wide and glassy with shock. He didn't look at Amanda. He looked at me, as if searching for an explanation, for a way that this could be a misunderstanding. I offered him none. I just met his gaze, my expression unyielding. I was holding up a mirror to the life he had chosen, and the reflection was ugly. "And now," I said, my voice dropping, becoming even quieter, "the final exhibit, page 7. An email from Amanda to Mark sent the day after her engagement party. That was the kill shot. Ben's head snapped down to the final page. Amanda finally looked up, her eyes pleading with him. "Ben, don't read it. She's twisting things. She's trying to ruin us." But he was already reading. "It's all going perfectly. Ben is completely wrapped around my finger. The Wellingtons think I'm a saint. Once this promotion to Austin is finalized and we're away from here, it'll be so much easier for us. A year in Austin to lock in the title, then we can make our move. You and me." The sound Ben made was something I had never heard before. A ragged, guttural gasp of pain. The portfolio slid from his numb fingers and hit the Persian rug with a soft thud. The carefully curated world he had built for himself, the one for which he had sacrificed his own mother, had just been revealed as a complete and utter fraud. Thurston Wellington was the first to explode. His pink face went a deep, apoplectic purple. He slammed the portfolio shut. "What is the meaning of this? You did this under my roof!" He wasn't yelling at Amanda, he was yelling at Mark. In his world, women were either saints or victims. Men were the predators. "Sir, this is a gross mischaracterization of a professional relationship," Mark stammered, his career flashing before his eyes. "Wrapped around my finger?" Bitsy whispered, her voice trembling. She looked at Amanda as if seeing a monster for the first time. Amanda, to her credit, was a fighter. She saw the ship was sinking and decided to try to swim. She rounded on me, her eyes blazing. "You did this! You bitter old woman! You couldn't stand that Ben was happy, that he had a life away from your pathetic little hovel, so you manufactured this filth!" Before I could even respond, Ben spoke. His voice was a dead, hollow thing. "Is it true?" He asked her directly, ignoring her tirade against me. "Is it true, Amanda?" "Of course not, darling," she cried, rushing to his side, trying to take his arm. He flinched away from her touch as if she were red hot.
"She hates me. She hates us. She's jealous." I know this part is hard to hear, but it's important. The truth was about to come out, and it was going to be glorious. "You haven't denied the affair, Amanda," I pointed out calmly. "You've only denied my motive for revealing it." Everyone looked at her. Her jaw worked, but no sound came out. She couldn't deny it. It was all there, printed on official Vance Industries letterhead. She and Mark were caught, red-handed, in a room with their corporate judge, jury, and executioner. Mark, seeing his last chance, made a final, fatal error. He tried to appeal to a shared sense of corporate authority, man to man. "Mr. Wellington," he began, straightening his tie, "this is clearly an HR matter within Vance Industries. I'm sure once this person is removed, we can handle it internally." He gestured dismissively at me. "I don't even know who she is." I almost smiled. It was the perfect opening. "Oh, you don't know who I am, Mark?" I asked, a gentle lilt in my voice. I looked at Thurston, at Bitsy, at Amanda, and finally at my son, whose son called me a pathetic, struggling widow with no ambition, a woman who clung to her dead husband's little shop. He's right, in a way. I did cling to it. I clung to it, and I learned it.
I learned how to run it. And then I learned how to grow it. I paused, letting the silence build. That little shop he's so ashamed of is Vance Industrial Solutions, which grew over 30 years into the Vance Industries Corporation, the same Vance Industries that owns the marketing firm in Chicago you both work for. The same Vance Industries that was about to promote you, Amanda, to a job you apparently plan to use as a launchpad for your life with him. I looked Mark Peterson right in the eye. My name is Eleanor Vance, and I'm not this person. I am the founder, majority shareholder, and CEO of this company. Your boss's boss's boss. The blood drained from Mark's face. He looked like he had been poleaxed. Thurston's mouth hung open. Ben just stared at me, his face a canvas of disbelief, dawning horror, and a sliver of something I hadn't seen in a long time, awe. As of this moment, I continued, my voice now ringing with 30 years of pent-up authority, both of you are terminated from Vance Industries for gross misconduct and violation of corporate ethics policies. You'll be hearing from our legal team regarding the fraudulent expense reports. A security team is on its way to your hotel, Mark, to collect your company laptop and phone. You have until noon tomorrow to vacate your corporate apartment in Chicago. I turned my attention to Amanda. Her facade of defiance had shattered, leaving behind a terrified, exposed young woman. Amanda? I said, and for the first time a note of something almost like pity entered my voice. Your promotion has been denied. Your career with my company is over. As for your career elsewhere, well, this is a very small world. I gestured around the library at the Wellingtons, and reputations are very fragile things, aren't they? Thurston Wellington finally found his voice. Get out, he rasped, pointing a shaking finger not at me, but at Amanda and Mark. Both of you, get out of my house now. And just like that, it was over. Amanda let out a sob, turned and fled the room. Mark, looking utterly defeated, shuffled out behind her without another word. The door closed, and we were left in the library, me, the stunned Wellingtons, and my son, whose entire life had just been detonated before his very eyes. He sank into a leather chair, put his face in his hands, and began to weep, not loudly, but with the deep, racking sobs of a man whose heart had just been irrevocably broken. Bitsy Wellington, her own shock momentarily forgotten, rushed to his side and put a comforting hand on his shoulder. Thurston just stood there, staring at me, a new, profound respect in his eyes. I picked up my briefcase and the discarded portfolios. My work here was done. I had exposed the truth. I had protected my company, and I had shown my son, in the most dramatic way possible, what his pathetic mother was capable of. I walked to the door. My car is waiting, I said to no one in particular. Mom, wait, he choked out from behind his hands. I stopped, my hand on the doorknob, but I didn't turn around. I couldn't. If I saw the absolute devastation on his face, the old maternal instincts might have kicked in, and I couldn't afford to be that person right now. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't know about any of it. What I said, Mom, I'm so sorry. I know you are, Ben, and one day that will matter. But today, it doesn't. I walked out of that library, through the opulent house, and back into the party. The jazz trio was still playing. People were still laughing and drinking champagne. I moved through them like a ghost, an unseen force of nature that had just ripped through the heart of the host family's lives. No one had any idea.
The valet brought my town car. I got in, and as we pulled away down the long tree-lined drive, I finally allowed myself to take a deep, shaky breath. I hadn't won, Nobody had won. But justice, in its own cold, corporate, and devastating way, had been served. I had taken back the narrative. I was no longer the embarrassing mother. I was Eleanor Vance, and I was just getting started. In the aftermath, Ben filed for an annulment. The Wellingtons, desperate to avoid a public scandal, agreed to everything. Amanda and Mark disappeared from the social and corporate scene. Rumor has it they moved somewhere out west, trying to start over. Ben left his consulting job and, for the first time in his life, was completely adrift. He called me every day for a month. I didn't answer. I needed time. He needed time to understand the magnitude of his own choices. Finally, I picked up. He didn't ask for money or a job. He just asked if he could come home. Not to my fancy CEO life, but to the small house he grew up in. The sad little hovel that suddenly represented the only real thing in his life. He lives in the guest room now. He's quiet, humbled. We talk. We are slowly, carefully rebuilding from the rubble. He's learning about Vance Industries not as a source of wealth, but as his father's legacy and mine. He sees the grease under my nails now, and for the first time, he understands it's not a sign of failure, but a badge of honor. I never intended to become a ruthless CEO. I was just a mother who wanted to protect her son. But when he forgot who I was, I had to remind him. And everyone else. What would you do in my place?
So another story of my grandmother has end, and be clicking here you will have when more such stories.